Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and King in Black Marauders, issue number one. It's probably going to be a one shot. Sad, but awesome. Really love this comic book, and I'm probably going to be making this my pick of the week. I can already imagine that no other comic book is going to come close to this one, in my opinion. There are some personal reasons for that, and I hope to share a lot of those personal reasons with you guys. Anyway, guys, let's get talking about who made this comic book, and we'll go on from there. And afterwards, we're going to talk about the 1951 Hague Convention because yeah, you don't have to stay for that one. But it is going to involve the comic book and the future of Krakoa. All right. So this issue is called The Queen in Red. All right, issue one. Jerry Dugan is the writer. The artist is Luke Ross. Carlos Lopez on color art and letters by VC's Corey Petit. Tom Mueller does the design. Cover art by Russell Dauterman and Matthew Wilson. Variant cover by Stefano Caselli and Federico Blee. Yeah, and loves me some Federico Blee. That's why I had to get the freaking variant cover. Support, support the people you love. Seriously, man, that's the way it works. Jonathan Hickman is still ahead of X some way, somehow. So this comic book started off really being frustrating. Like, the art wasn't exactly the greatest. I understand that there was, like, later on I started to guess that maybe a lot of it's just because of the hecticness of what's going on, and oh my god, the seas, and like there's a storm and there's dragons about and things like that. But at the end of the day, the art just, a lot of the characters didn't really look the way that I'm used to the characters being. A lot of it was just very basic sketches where it's just enough to recognize who people are, and sometimes mostly by the costumes than anything else. That was a little bit frustrating. But even the writing was very hectic as well. The idea of Bishop being one of the main captains, but he's also answerable to Kitty Pryde. See, this is a dynamic that I would otherwise really like a lot if it was explained again, because nobody really explained it in the first place, and that's really troublesome to me. Um, Bishop is one of the people that when they reach anywhere, even on the high seas, it's supposed to matter also. It's one of the things I didn't understand about her picking Bishop. Did I say Cable? I might have said Cable at one point. Her picking Bishop to be her Red Knight. It's the idea that, it's like, hi, here I am. I'm this guy who I'm supposed to be one of the main captains out there, but I'm going to be answerable to her. Unless fighting breaks out, then she's answerable to me. It's like this, none of this really makes sense, but it's only if you're answering to the Shadow Council. But the Hellfire Trading Company is run by parts of the Shadow Council that really are independent of things. So is this basically a captain of two ships? Like, that doesn't make sense. Well, if the ship goes down, which one do you go down with, right? So it's a hard sell to me. And I feel like, as much as I love Bishop in this, maybe they should have found a different role for him, right? Like, one or the other role should have just been quashed, because I haven't noticed any real reason to have him have both roles. And in this particular case, where it's even brought up, it doesn't make sense. After that, everything else in the comic book was unbelievably good. Um, they're fighting off some dragons. There's some really weird interactions between Bishop and Pyro, which I actually appreciate because, hey, Iceman actually acts like a man instead of Ice Boy in this, like Snow Boy versus Iceman. So I really dig on that. Mind you, he's also just used for his powers again. It's like, I almost wish that somebody would just say, by the way, I'm gay, so that this way we'd have a little bit of, I don't know, what Marvel considers personality in the comic books. It's like, Iceman, one of the six oldest X-Men. Technically, Professor X wasn't an X-Man. He's the X. They're the men. Minus Jean Grey. You know how it works, all right? Anyway, the thing from sea to shining sea. So I really expected to see more. I was hoping to see more. It's like you got all this personality with Pyro, and clearly Dugan is having fun writing Pyro. It's like it's his vent since he's not writing Deadpool anymore, right? Even though there's an added here for something with Deadpool coming up and his name is attached to it. Um, it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable reading this and getting the story that we're getting. So there's the one part where Bishop hears something, but it's something that no one else hears. Now, how do you express something like that with the vast bulk of the audience not noticing it? I'll tell you how you do it right here. You see this page, also with the Deadpool stuff on it. See, Dugan's name is there, right under Kelly Thompson. Anyway, it's right here where you actually see the banging, right? Because the banging is the form of Morse code. Do you see it yet? Did you already see it? S dot 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 S dash 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 O dot 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 S. There was no automatopoeia, which, the ding, 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 there was no nothing like that, because when Bishop is sitting here saying that sound, wait a second, I'm going on board. It's hard to hear through the waves and the crashing of the ocean and the dragons screaming and stuff like that, but I'm hearing something. That is the sound effect. That is the automatopoeia. SOS. That was genius. I loved that. Absolutely loved that. Because I'm like, that's a really weird border break. Why would they do that? In fact, why is it in the shape of Morse code? Nobody uses it. Not even the Navy technically uses William Morris's Morse code anymore. So not that big of a deal, But it was freaking amazing. For those of us who did notice it, it was like that. That was pure genius. Just oozing off of the page. I freaking loved that moment. That was great. And then, of course, seeing that there's human trafficking going on. I wish they would have said where these guys were from. I guess it's not important. It kind of would have been cool if they would. I only wanted them to say where they were actually coming from, because I wanted the answer to be Wakanda. I wanted to be one of those things where it's like, oh no. Now, and because they mentioned Namor in this also, and it's like, if they got the Wakanda thing, and they got the Namor thing, and they got the X-Men in the middle, and they're hoping that eventually Namor will kind of sort of join them, but then here's Black Panther over here, and you're making a nation against my nation. It's not against your nation. Why did you kidnap my people? It's not really the way it went down, man. This would just be amazing. But I'm not here to write the stories. I'm here to read the stories. So whatever. Maybe we'll see that later. Maybe we won't. Don't know. I'll care later. But they did mention the one girl's name. No, Naomi, I think it's supposed to be pronounced. Anyway, whatever it was. They did mention her name several times. Hopefully that means, using Chekhov's gun philosophy, that she's going to come back at some point. So now these people are trying to get to Canada, not to America. These people were supposed to bring them to and obviously the whole thing with the evidence, just olive oil, nothing that can't be regrown. Yeah. I love when Kate just backhanded them. Bow! That was perfect. That was perfect. I loved it. I also love, just a quick aside before I forget, I love the idea that Emma was like, are you kidding me? We definitely have to save Scott. I mean, and Storm too, because whatever. But, we got to save Scott. That was not unnoticed, just like the Morse code moment. That was very noticeable by all of us, I'm sure. The council is meeting and whatnot, and Magneto is the one to actually meet them. I love that he's kind of subservient to Emma. Listen, you know what'll make a guy act like a little doggy is getting some of that boom boom, because Magneto's been running a lot of errands for Emma lately, hasn't he? Almost like Scott's been, Scott always ran some errands for Emma when he was getting that boom boom. So I'm wondering, because if she's not banging Scott, instead Jean and Wolverine apparently are banging Scott. I don't know how that story goes. All right, I don't know. And we do know it's canon that Wolverine is bisexual. All right, he slept with Hercules before. Go look that one up, kiddies. But yeah. Wow. I'm thinking that maybe Magneto, because she's gonna get what she wants to get. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying I think that maybe he's, because the only thing that's gonna make a man act like a puppy is he's getting that really prime cut pum pum. All right, I said what I said, and that's all I'm gonna say. Anyway, these people were actually trying to claim refugee status in Canada. Now, why not America? Maybe this was written during the Trump administration and it's only getting to us now, in which case I think it's pretty obvious. This is not one of those things where it's like, anti-Trump. It's just whatever. I don't like any politician, so honestly, who cares? But I think that anybody will know that. I think anybody can be honest with themselves and say during the Trump administration, far less refugees were taken, if any. I honestly don't know that any refugee was taken in during um, Trump's administration. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, towards the beginning, even there was that thing with the plane where it's like, yeah, we're going to take some people. Oh wait, my constituents are saying no. Sorry, plane, you're going to have to go someplace. I think Canada wound up taking them. Yeah, we took them. Anyway, they want to get to Canada instead of America. Now, while we may say, hey, look, they can go to Canada, they can go to Canada after they go to America, they actually can't. They actually can't. And here's the way that works. There's this thing called safe first country. All right. And if I love the joke, by the way, like, oh, Jersey just gets a really bad rep. Hey, it's not like it's Florida. Like, okay, thank you. You know what I'm saying? Jeez. But anyway, we have Ms. Marvel. Give me a break. But we have the safe first country thing, safe third country, whatever, where Canada and America are the only two countries that I know of that have this. No other country has this. If you are coming from, if you're trying to get to Canada through the United States, your refugee status will automatically be rejected because America is considered a safe first country. That's the thing that Trump tried to do with a bunch of the other countries, in South America and also in Mexico, and said, well, if you come through this country first, it's a safe country, so you got to stay there. No, the only agreement that anybody in the world has for a safe third country would have to be American Canada. So likewise, if you're somehow coming, if you get to Canada first and then you try and go down to America, that's not going to work. America's going to have to reject you. Mind you, that's only at the port of entries. That's only at the port of entries. So if you're coming over by land, whether walking or driving, if you come by boat, different. If you come by plane, different. But at a port of entry, no, it's not going to work. So you're trying to get over there by the Rainbow Bridge or whatever? Wrong answer. So they had to make sure that they went to Canada without going to the United States for that specific reason. Otherwise, yeah. Also, they were probably going up to as far as Nova Scotia because that's where most of the human trafficking in Canada happens. What I say? Yeah, it's true. It's true. Look it up. Human trafficking in Canada, 90+% of it comes through Nova Scotia. Just it is what it is. Are we learning something new here, kids? Like this is a part of my studies, bro. Like I'm killing it. I'm top of my class, and for a reason. So it's great seeing that Krakoa is choosing to do this. Now, mind you, there's going to be some opinions posted. That's cool, and I'm happy to hear your opinions, but they're also like your opinions, man. Unless you actually know about immigration, then it's hard to really have more than just an opinion, which we've all got those. We've got other things too. I'm talking about buttholes. Opinions are like buttholes. Everyone's got one. Yeah, that one. Anyway, for those who weren't following along, the way that this works is there were 148 countries that signed the Hague Convention. Yes, it happened in Geneva, but it's not called a Geneva Convention. There were 4 Geneva Conventions. This and the last one was in 1948. But the 1951 Hague Convention, which, yes, happened in Geneva, is not considered a Geneva Convention because it wasn't actually pushed by Geneva. It was pushed by the UN specifically. So this is what originally dealt with the refugees that are created during times of war and whatnot. And there was a second Hague Convention also that expanded it because the 1951 Hague Convention, for the most part, really only had Jews escaping from Germany, like Nazi-occupied territory, specifically Germany, but Austria and whatnot would have counted also. Because unfortunately, Canada returned a boat, America returned a boat of people, of Jews trying to escape. And then we know that when they went back, they had to go back to Germany and they were killed. Like every single person on that boat was murdered summarily. Nobody escaped that alive. So, like, it's a real dark stain on the history of a lot of countries, So that's why the 1951 Hague Convention was made, so that that kind of mistake can't happen again. And then there was another one later on, which expanded it to any war torn country because we realized that it's the main countries in the world that have caused most of the dystopia, the dysphoria, excuse me, but it's very dystopic in the world. It's just like you look at World War II, you look at World War One, you look at the War of 1812, or in general the original Great War. You know what I'm saying? The like all of these crazy wars that happen. Russian Prussian, you can go back to that far, and the Mennonites, trying to escape and whatnot. Like there's so much history there of regular people trying to escape, politicians that are arguing with each other, and big businesses that are trying to use the armies of different nations to fight each other and to get their profits across, and war profiteers and whatnot. And there's just regular citizens that deserve the protection of their nation and they don't get it. So they're not considered safe. So they leave. So there are these people called convention refugees. So they're talking about the 1951 Hague Convention. If you qualify as a convention refugee, you're automatically guaranteed, although it may take years, like 3 years, sometimes more, sometimes it's far less. You're pretty much guaranteed to be able to go into a camp, stay in this camp, be at least fairly safe within this camp, safer than back home. You know what I'm saying, where it's freaking war torn, and then they'll try and get you to, like, there's a lot of people and there's a lot of intake. Unfortunately, when people leave their countries due to war, they don't usually go and start looking through their files and try and find their birth certificates and be able to prove who they are and whatnot. It's usually like, crap, get the kids, let's go. You know what I'm saying? And they try and get out of there as quickly as they can. They come with no money, they come with no identification, they come with no nothing. So you got to try and identify who these people are first, right? And that's one of the main reasons why this takes so long, because you don't want to have, like a Slobodan Milosevic showing up in the middle of, this, and you're like, oh, I'm a convention refugee. I don't even know if that's a freaking Serbian accent or not, but you get my point, right? Any friggin'. So, and then aside from refugees, which is a convention refugee, there's also protected persons or persons in need of protection. They don't necessarily qualify for, what would it be, Section 96 of the IRPA, Immigration Refugee Protection Act. I think it's Section 96 here in Canada for convention refugees, and 97 is, well, 96 also allows for persons protected, but 97, it's a little bit harder to get in there. But if you did get in there, like, you're guaranteed to get protected person status, because, like, you specifically are being targeted by a group. Case in point, there was a time, Ward versus Canada, I think it was Ward versus Canada, where they had this guy Ward, who was he was in the IRA out there in Ireland, and he was assigned to guard a room full of prisoners. When they didn't get the ransom that they wanted, they called up this guy and said, okay, just execute all these guys and come back. And he's like, I'm not executing these people. Like, I was looking for us to get paid, but I'm not here to execute a bunch of people. So he ushered them out. He's like, all you guys get the hell out of here. Get out of Ireland, whatever you got to do. Get the hell out of here, because they're going to find you again. And then he left because he knew it was his ass. So he did leave. He knew that Ireland couldn't protect him. There was no way. So he came to Canada. And that was one of the ways that that case is a very famous case in Canada for identifying who is a person who is targeted. You know what I'm saying? What actually qualifies as a person who is named targeted. You know what I'm saying? Like, this group specific. It's not just, oh, the Oromo people are in trouble, we have to go. The Hutsis and the Tutsis are fighting. So, oh, this tribe or this ethnicity or whatever. No. It's like, yeah, Mr. Ward, we need this guy. Like, this is a good way where if you're named, like, that's your ass if they find you, guaranteed protection. And we get into Vasilov and a bunch of other cases, which, yeah, really fun. Really fun. If you want to get into law, immigration law is a good way to do it. And they have a version in America too, of course. But anyway, the idea of a country that has to take refugees, or only of the 148, Some of them who were there at the 51 Hague Convention and some who signed years later. I think Canada actually signed 7 years after, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was like 7 years after the 51 Convention. In 58, I believe they actually signed the convention doctorate. So it was post hubris. You know what I'm saying? After they said everything, like, oh, sign this up because it sounds like a good idea because we're good people. And yeah, it works. So it's an international crime against humanity if you don't take a refugee who deserves to be a refugee, who deserves refugee status or protected person status, you know? It's one of the reasons why the UN will help out certain countries, you know what I'm saying, with, finances or whatever to try and help people out because you're trying to do something. And Canada doesn't even spend any money on these people. Canada spends like almost $0 aside from trying to prove that these people are or aren't who they are. And mind you, the onus of proof is on the people to prove who they are. You better know some people and make some phone calls to be able to prove who you are because you're going to be in detention for a long time because they don't want, they got to establish, are you a danger or a threat to society? Are you a potential flight risk? You know what I'm saying? If you qualify as a refugee, boom, you get to stay in the country, go wherever the hell you want and do whatever you want for the most part. But we got to make sure you're not a freaking psychopath because we certainly have a few adversities against psychopaths. Call us prejudice anyway. So here's the big question: does Krakoa have to take refugees? Again, opinions are cute, but let's actually look at the facts. Let's actually look at the law. The fact is that no, they don't, because they never signed the 1951 Hague Convention. Now, a lot of what they wanted to do would have probably been a situation where they said, if you want the UN to recognize you, you could do a whole lot of good by promising to sign the Hague Convention at some point. It's not something that would mandatory put on them, but they would have said, like, in good faith, when you are established, and they're clearly established. Look at the money they're making in, because they're going to look at the GDP. They're going to look at the gross domestic product. They're also going to look like, are there wars? Is there fighting? Is there insurrection and things like that? And since it's a very quiet country, we don't know that in the same week, Mastermind just apparently killed Mr. Sinister. We see that he's tied up in chains someplace else. Psst, don't tell the guys who saw that video, though. Anyway, yeah, they would have probably said something like that, like, it would be a good thing. It's not just the idea that you want to be an independent nation that wants to do trades and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? It's a little bit different. But mind you, this is a lot like putting physics into, real world physics into comic books. There's only but so much you can do because it's a freaking comic book, right? But at the same time, looking at this, they did not sign the 1951 Hague Convention, so they are under zero obligation to take refugees and or persons in need of protection. A person in need of protection would be a situation where you can stay here temporarily, and when your situation is safe, we will send you back to, or you will go back to wherever you came from, or someplace else. It's your choice. In this particular case, that is the case. Magneto said, we will send you someplace else. And you can spread the word that we're actually humane, that we're actually merciful, that we're actually gracious. Reminds me of Xerxes, right? I'm a merciful god. Like, dude, you're a tall freak. What the hell, dude? You take your immortals and piss off, man. Go back to that tree. Psychopaths. See, we don't want psychopaths in our country. Call us prejudice. We're fine with that. But the point is, this dealt with so much without actually dealing with these things. I don't know if Jerry Dugan knows anything about freaking refugee and immigration law. Like, I don't know that. You know what I'm saying? But everything that happened in this comic book was very, very fitting with the laws, which are, and mind you, these are international laws. If you signed the treaty at the UN, boom, and then in the hearts and minds of the rest of the world, you're and as long as you're actually following the tenets of what you signed, then suddenly you're a good person. You're a good country. We look at you fondly. We're more apt to sign treaties with you. You know what I'm saying? The bad nations are less likely to want to deal with you. The good nations are more likely to want to deal with you because we're of like mind, right? As opposed to being the country where we're just like, yeah, America's closed. Ding. Yeah, no, we don't. That's not how we want to be. Because if you think it is, watch what happens. I'm gonna make a statement here, which is very political. If you don't want to hear it, you're free to leave. Time's up. A lot of people like to think that Donald Trump has done so much to ruin this country. That's not true. That's absolutely not true, for the most part, at all. Joe Biden is already doing stuff to ruin this country. By all means, look at it with an open eye. The Clintons, well, Bill Clinton at least, because he was mostly in charge, but even Hillary, still working with freaking war criminal Henry Kissinger. Yeah, he's still alive. Still going before them, trying to get the World Bank to be a big thing before the UN. What do you call it? The Bush, both Bushes and Reagan. Like, a lot of people have done a lot to really ruin this country. Nixon did a lot to besmirch this country's name, right? The good name of this country. A lot of people have done that. All right. You know who's done the most, even more than Newt Gingrich, as far as Speaker of the House is concerned? You know where I'm going with this now, right? If you're following politics at all. Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell has done more to sully this nation, not just the lives of other Americans, but in the hearts and minds of our neighbor nations, right? Including us up here in Canada, including Mexico. So there's NAFTA, or the old NAFTA. It's basically NAFTA. But also all of our allies. Mitch McConnell has actually done more to screw things over, stopping certain votes, and Pelosi has stopped certain votes too. The person who stopped healthcare votes, like universal healthcare votes, is Pelosi. But as far as like actual things that have destroyed this nation, Mitch McConnell has done more bad for this country, more bad for America, I should say, than anybody else. Anybody else. And it's terrifying to see how many people know so little about politics, who follow politics so little, when it's like, and then we want to turn around and say, oh, well, this stuff isn't my business. If this nation's, or if these people are hurt or whatever, it's not my business. No, no. Sometimes that lack of caring allows for monsters like this to exist. We all play a part. All of us play a part in this, getting divvied up by silly little politics and whatnot. Anyway, that's enough preachifying. I will talk to you guys later. This was a really fun comic book. I love this comic book. Really spoke to my heart by studying immigration refugee law. Wow, this was really good, and seeing the X-Men actually be heroes. That's something. That's something that I really didn't expect to see for a while. But go figure, Bishop of all people, and my girl Kate Pride, they're heroes. Freaking heroes. We haven't seen a hero comic book with the X titles in a while. So, yay. Anyway, guys, even Magneto and Emma. Wow. Really impressive. Dugan! Can Dugan be the head of X? I'd be okay with that. Talk to you guys later. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Like the video. What's stopping you? Class dismissed.